And we are live. What's going on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn Live? It is your boy Billy Rowe, and today is Wednesday. If it is Wednesday, you should know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday Word. That's Wednesday Word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is, excuse me, the mirror. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topic. So what do I mean by the topic, the mirror? What I mean when I say the topic, the mirror, is that in life, in our lives, there are people that are watching us and creating behaviors based upon what they see. And so this mirror really in this particular concept is twofold. There's the people that are watching us that are creating behaviors. They are mirroring to us what they see in us that they're trying to mimic or duplicate. And then there is ourselves. We are looking at our lives and analyzing ourselves kind of in our reflections. And I mean meditation reflections. We're analyzing our lives and we are seeing an image of who we believe we are or who we think we are. So tonight I have 3 tools that I want to share with you, 3 tools for the first row when it comes to this mirror concept. So let's jump straight into it. Tool number 1 when it comes to the mirror concept is there is more than negative. And I always kind of like wrestle with which order the tools are going to come in. And it's always kind of difficult to figure out what tool number 1 is. But I chose this tool to be tool number 1 because I liken it to a couple of things that I've noticed about myself. When I look in a mirror, like a real physical mirror, when I look into a mirror, the first thing that I notice is my flaws, or the first things that I notice are my flaws. Whether that is my eyes are, one eye's closed a little more than the other, or one eye's, I think they call it lazy. One eye's a little more lazy than the other eye. And so there's a difference there. There's certain attributes that I may have that I'm like, it's not my favorite thing, but hey, it is what it is. It's what I got. But there's more than just the negative picture. The challenge is that because we see ourselves so often in the mirror and because we are constantly analyzing our image of what we think is out there in the world, we typically gravitate to our negative attributes. It's almost like being unable to accept a compliment. I have a friend that I was actually speaking with today, and while we were having a conversation, they were like, it's so crazy that, if somebody was like, hey, I'm not that smart, I'm like, man, you're super smart. You have all these great things and all these great characteristics and you're super wise, right? But then they were like, but then when I think to myself that, man, that wasn't the smartest decision or I'm not that smart, I don't have that pep talk. I don't have those positive attributes to pour into myself. And so there's more than negative is really identifying that what we may see in our self-image might highlight or focus on the negative. However, what other people are seeing in our lives is a blend of both positive and negative. And honestly, I'm going to say, at least in my experience, oftentimes a lot of what people perceive to see as they are trying to mirror and match your behaviors are positive behaviors. I think about, like, even with having like small children, if you have, let's say you like sports and you have a habit of yelling at the TV. I don't typically watch a whole lot of sports, but I play video games and I typically yell at the TV. And my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. If I am calm, collected, and I'm like yelling at the TV, like, oh man, I could have did better than that. And I'm yelling things that can be perceived as positive or encouraging, my children, a young child, will pick up that behavior and they will mimic that behavior. They'll, oh man, I missed that shot. I could have did better, but I'll do better next time. But if we're yelling like, oh, I'm so stupid, oh, I'm an idiot, I shouldn't have did that, the child will mirror that. See, they don't perceive it as positive or negative. They're just like, hey, this is the person that I want to mirror my behaviors after. This is what they're doing, so this is what I'm going to do. And so when I say there's more than negative, it really comes in the aspect of both, not just our physical attributes. Like I said, I have some physical attributes that I see in the mirror that I really don't perceive them as negative. They're just imbalances in my physical features. But then there's also our characteristics. And really, when there's an imbalance or when all we see is negative in our characteristics, what that does is it breeds a breeding or creates a breeding ground for imposter syndrome. Now, for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome in a nutshell is when we might do something. Let's say we bake cakes. We're decent at baking cakes. People like our cakes. We sell our cakes. And then this imposter syndrome kicks in and says, are you really good at baking cakes? Or are you just acting like you know how to bake cakes? And this is what happens when we have this negative focus or this hyper negative focus on the negative things when it comes to our own characteristics. Even when we're doing good or doing well or doing positive things, we begin to question, well, is it really positive? Because I have that one characteristic flaw over here that's not even involved with the positive thing that you're doing, but is it really who I am? I've had to deal with this in choosing to do inspirational speaking and empowerment coaching, in writing a book. I've had to deal with these things because on one spectrum, I feel like I have a ton of experience, a ton of wisdom that I want to pour out and share. But on the other spectrum, it's like, but your life isn't all the way together. So how can you help people get their lives together if your life isn't all the way together? Well, if you read the book, you'll know I say it's not about having your life all together. It's about being ahead of the person that you're mentoring. So you might just have your life together a little bit more in a specific area than that person does. And that allows you to be that mentor. So that's tool number one when it comes to this. We are more than just the negative things that we see. And really, instead of just looking at the mirror and only seeing the image that we see, it's always helpful to have that second party, or maybe it's a third party, have that third party that is trying to mirror and match and look at the things that they are trying to reflect about your characteristics, both physically and mentally or characteristically about you. And it's okay because we were designed to be complex. We were not designed to be one-dimensional. So there is a balance that we will have. Some attributes we will have that will be positive, and some attributes that we have that will be negative. Or I'm not even going to use the word negative because if it's a physical aspect, it just might be a lack of preference, an attribute that we do not prefer. And so that's tool number one. There's more than negative. Be willing to unveil the positive and be willing to actually understand that it's okay to be multidimensional in this particular aspect. Tool number one. Let's move on to tool number two. Tool number two, when it comes to the mirror concept, is the mirror does not change our image. So I've been thinking about how to convey this particular tool. And the best way I can convey it is thinking about as a child going to the circus or to the fair. And they would have these fun houses, and you can go into this fun house and there'd be these mirrors, and these mirrors would make you tall and skinny and stout and fat. And this is the problem, is that the mirror might reflect something in the fun house that you're not really. I'm not really tall and skinny, or I'm not short and stout and fat. I'm just who I am. And so when we anticipate that the mirror is giving us information back that does not resonate with us, or that we don't want to accept, what we're in essence doing is saying we're apparently looking into a funhouse mirror. So when we do things that are outside of our characteristics, and we had a little bit of a conversation about this last night with Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe Live, where we were talking about our identities and how you have this natural identity, but you also have, I believe, an identity that you truly are thriving or striving to obtain. And so the mirror's job is not to change our reflection on who we are, so that way now we're everything that we want to be. That's not the mirror's job. The mirror's job is not change. The mirror's job is reflection, being able to give us the ability to see, and being able to give others who might be looking up to us as a mentor or a role model the ability to see what we see as well, even though they're going to see something completely different. And that's I guess a tool within a tool, is that what we see in the mirror is what we see. And it is actually unique to our experience. Just like when somebody else looks in our mirror, what they see of us is what they see, which is unique to their experience, either with us or their own life experiences. But moving back to this tool, the mirror does not change our image. Really, what that's about, it's just almost like when they say, oh, a person gets money and then they change, or a person has a big house, drives a nice car, has a fancy job, and then they change. No, the person hasn't changed. The person is who they are. The things that are being added to them may make certain attributes that they've already have or they already have within them more prominent or more distinctive in the fact that they come more clearer into focus for that person. So if you're a jerk and now all of a sudden you have a lot of money and don't feel like you need people anymore, now you might really come through with that attribute of being a jerk. And now that really comes off when people interact with you, like, yeah, I don't want to interact with that dude. He's a jerk. I don't want to act with that chick. She's a jerk. That's what I mean when I say the mirror does not change our image. The other aspect about the mirror not changing our image is that sometimes we'll look into a mirror and we will refuse to accept what we see. And this can be both a good thing and it can be a bad thing. Depends on what actions you take when you're rejecting the image that you see. Remember, the job of the mirror is to reflect what is being displayed in the mirror. So we might reflect something where we're making poor decisions or whatever it may be. Let's say we're reflecting something where we have a poverty mentality. For clarification on definition, when I say a poverty mentality, what I mean by that is a mentality in which we go and we buy all these lavish things because we have a little bit of money and we want to live the finest life that we can live with that little bit of money. Unfortunately, we don't buy the things that are attain the things that are important. And so living that lavish life comes at eventually there's a price to pay for living that lavish life and not having the funds to maintain it. So that's what I mean by a poverty mindset. But we will look at that and see that reflected in the mirror and say, nah, it's okay. I'm good. I'm Gucci'd up. I'm Louis'd up. I'm Dior'd up or whatever it may be. I don't know. I don't think I own any brand name items. But we'll look at it like that and we will ignore the fact that, yes, from the appearance, we have all these finer things in life. But behind those finer things, behind the reflection, I guess the blind spot, we'll call it, we don't have our stuff together. And that is where when we don't accept what we see, or when we are accepting what we see, oh, this is all the positive stuff that we see, it's all great, and we're ignoring the things that we know are behind it. This is when we don't accept what we see, or we accept what we see, this is when that's damaging to us. Now, there's another side of that coin where there could be things that are going bad for us, and we can choose not to accept that. We could be like, hey, man, they just repossessed my car. I just got an eviction notice. The job is going bad. Like, we can have those things taking place and choose not to accept what we see in that moment. Because what I would see in that moment for myself personally is like, man, I got a bunch of failure taking place. Things are going down. It's about to be a sunken ship. But we can choose not to accept that. And I don't mean detach from reality and be like, everything is fine and the sun is shining outside, it's going to be a great day. I don't mean that. We can choose to say, hey, this failure may be taking place. And while this failure is taking place, we can be building a foundation for which we're going to springboard off of and say, hey, look, this failure is not the end. This failure is just the end of this particular chapter. And I'm going to start building on chapter 2. I'm going to start building on chapter 3 and slowly but surely climb ourselves out of maybe a hole that we dug for ourselves or that we walked into, climb ourselves out of that hole and then progress beyond the image that we were in that moment. And that's what I mean by choosing not to accept that image. You can choose to accept, hey, it looks like I'm about to be homeless, but I'm going to choose to not accept that as my overall final image. So that's tool number 2. The mirror does not change our image. It is not responsible for changing our image. We are. And we can do that, again, one of 2 ways. We can either deny the image that we have and work to attain the image that we desire, or we can front and act like the image that we have is perfect and nothing's wrong in the background. But at the end of the day, if something's wrong in the background, it's going to show. So that's tool number 2 when it comes to the mirror. And then finally is tool number 3. Tool number 3 when it comes to the mirror is we become who we see. Now, I know this kind of contradicts the second tool, and I've been dealing with this challenge since I've had these two tools. But what I mean when I say we become who we see is more so about our self-image. We become, we thrive, we head towards the image that we see. If we see ourselves as successful, intelligent, compassionate, trustworthy, and all these wonderful characteristics, if that's who we see ourselves as, we actually naturally gravitate towards those characteristics and towards that personality. Here's the thing, though, that we can be in a situation where our reflection reflects something counterintuitive to those things that we see in our self-image. And when it reflects back to us, we get to make a choice. We get to decide, is that who I want to be? And this, again, goes back to last night's conversation. When our mirror is reflecting something that we know we either are not, or we know that we do not desire to be, it is our responsibility to then take that information and make the adjustment. And that's really when I say we become who we see, that's what happens, is we make the adjustment. And it happens, and the reason why the mirror is not just about us looking in the mirror, it's about others looking into our mirror and seeing us, is because we become who we see starts before we even understand we have a mirror. It starts in childhood when we're looking up to other people and we're modeling behaviors after them. Those behaviors later become our behaviors. Those behaviors later, or those characteristics later become our characteristics. Well, you know, my brother played basketball, so I played basketball. Oh, my brother was an author, so I'm an author. Oh, my dad played football, so I played football. We are mirroring these characteristics initially because we are, honestly, I'm just going to say, we're not big enough, we're not tall enough, or even have the comprehension to understand that we have our own mirror that we need to get in front of to assess who we want to become. And this is why a lot of us have identity issues. I don't mean like sexual identity issues. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about identity issues as far as not truly knowing who we are, not truly knowing what we stand for, not truly knowing what we represent. A lot of us have those identity issues because a lot of our identity that we carry is made up of other people's identities, and we have yet to take the time to invest in our own mirror, to sit and stand with that person, almost like naked and unashamed, to say, this is what I have, this is what I want to be, and here's how I'm going to get there. A lot of us don't take the time to do that. But once we do start taking the time to actually reflect and look in our own mirror, we realize that we are, in essence, our own guiding light. And that sounds so counterintuitive, because how can you be the guiding light that's guiding you? But at the same time, when you have a mirror, this is the only time in the world, I guess in the day, outside of looking into a camera that like I'm doing right now, that I can see myself. So this is how we become our own guiding light, is by picking up our own mirror and being able to put that in front of us so that we can see ourselves. We can engage with ourselves, and we can determine if who we see is who we want to become. And if it's not, going back to tool number 2, the mirror's responsibility is not to change us. That's our responsibility. We have to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and pick this mirror up. I don't like this image. Go ahead and give me some Windex and some paper towels. I'm going to clean this mirror real quick, make sure none of that is just the mirror. And then after that, we got some work to do. The last thing I want to say is about when we become who we see, is a lot of my journey in the first row and in becoming an empowerment coach and becoming an inspirational speaker and speaking into people's lives. A lot of that journey wasn't what it was. It wasn't what it is today when I started. And this would be, I guess, a fourth and a bonus tool, is that as we're picking up these mirrors and as we're looking at our lives and assessing if we are who we want to be, as we're looking at others and trying to determine based on them giving us information on how they're trying to mimic and match us as we're determining if that's the impact that we want to have. It's so important, so important to have a space of grace, a space where you can forgive yourself, a space where you can love yourself, a space where you can invest in yourself, pour into yourself. It's so important to have a space of grace, because sometimes when we look in the mirror, picture ain't pretty. I'm not talking about physically. Sometimes when we look in the mirror and we might be in a physical mirror, but the thoughts that go on when we're in that physical mirror, some of those thoughts are not warm and fuzzy thoughts. Some of those thoughts are just like, dang, this is who I am today. But the key word is this is who you are today. You can choose to be someone else tomorrow. So that's what I got for you guys tonight. Really quick, I want to go over the 3 tools for you again. When it comes to the mirror, tool number 1 is there's more than negative. If we zoom only into the negative, we're going to miss the overall beauty of the picture every single time. So take a moment to zoom out and assess yourself as a complete individual, not just on the negative side. Because if you're just on the negative side, then all you're going to think is you're a negative person, and that might not be the case. Tool number 2 is the mirror does not change our image. Please, please, please let go of the funhouse mentality. The mirror is not making you tall. The mirror is not making you fat. The mirror is giving you a reflection. And if you don't like that reflection, then it is your responsibility to change it. And then tool number 3, is we become who we see. Our self-image, it acts as the guiding light of who we inevitably will become. If our self-image is poor, if our self-image, again, is a poverty mindset, we're going to take that mindset and everything that we may want in life that is not attached to that poverty mindset, we're never going to be qualified for. And I will go into a word that I've used a lot today. We're never going to be worthy for. The reason why we're never going to be worthy for it is because of the image that we see in our mind about who we are. That image tells us we're not worth it. I can promise you, there's a lot of things I thought I wasn't worth, and I'm finding that I am above and beyond worthy of them. So that's the 3 tools that I have for you. As always with the Wednesday word, man, I like to share a personal story about what kind of got me thinking about this particular experience or this particular topic, the mirror. And it was a really simple concept. It was one day my wife and I and our 2 sons were headed to the car, and our sons were visiting for summer break at the time. And I have made a habit. Well, I can't even say I've made a habit. I was raised by my mother to open doors for ladies when we walk into buildings. And if I didn't open the door for my mom when we were walking in the building, I got popped in the back of the head. So I got really good at making sure I open doors for ladies when I'm going into buildings. But that carried over into opening doors for ladies when they're getting into cars. And so when my wife and I first started dating, that was something that I just naturally did. I'd open the door, she'd get in, and sometimes she'd open the door and I'd have to say, can you please wait for me to open the door? But I'd open the door, she'd get in, and I'd close the door. And during this trip with our sons visiting during the summer, they came from one of my youngest son, he was 7 at the time. He comes around to her door and he opens her door for her. And then he gets in the car. He's like, I opened your door for you. You can close it. And he gets in the car. And it gave me this concept that your kids are watching you, but until you see them mimic you, and this is where the secondary mirror came from, until you see them mirroring and mimicking your behaviors, you really are like, oh, shoot. At that moment, when you see that, you're like, oh, shoot, you really are watching me. You really are mirroring and matching what you see in me. And so I have a lot to do with the mirror that my children, my sons, will be looking into later as adults when they're looking into the mirror for themselves. And so it got me thinking about this concept. And it was just a simple concept of like, what other things can I be doing in life? Not in regards to my sons, but what other things can I be doing in life that other people are looking at me as an example and they are trying to concoct their rendition of my behavior? And when you're out in the world and you place that responsibility on yourself to be a role model, to be an example, to be a guiding light for yourself and for others, all of a sudden you have to start making different decisions. And I know that can be scary to have to make different decisions, and it can be hard to make different decisions. But at the end of the day, the types of decisions that you make that are different are better decisions for you, because now it's not just about, oh, well, this is just going to impact me. No, this might impact my son. No, this might impact that stranger. No, this might impact that viewer who's watching the first row. So that's where I came from with that. Really quick, I want to bring in the live chat comments. We only got 2 of them, but B Gate 82 says that space for self deep. Absolutely. You got to create it, man, because we are the masters at getting in the ring and beating ourselves up, but we are not good at being a cut man. And then it looks like, oh, what's going on, Cranberry? It says, what about being the prophet of your own life? Very good, sir. Very good, sir. Very good. Very important to think this through. Beautiful. What about being the prophet of your own life? Absolutely. I think that is, again, that guiding light principle, is that we are the guiding light to our own lives. And again, the reason why I use the mirror is because outside of any type of reflection or video technology, the only way I ever see myself, besides like, I guess maybe the tip of my nose and my chest down, the only time I see my face is when I'm looking into a mirror, or I'm looking into a video camera, or I'm taking a picture. Those are the only times in my life that I see my face. And so when you say about being the prophet of your own life, for me, that is me being the guiding light of my own life, setting where I want to go, and then manifesting that reality. We had a whole conversation on manifestation in regards to how we manifest both positive and negative, and we are so accepting of the negative that we manifest. In many cases, some people blame it, but in many cases, we accept the negative that we manifest, but can't for some reason fathom that we can manifest positive and better for our lives. But that's a whole nother conversation. But that's what I got for you guys today on the Wednesday Word. I hope you guys have enjoyed the Wednesday Word. Really quickly, just a reminder, if you have not ordered your copy of Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you need to go to thefirstrow.com, get chapter 1, take a read. If you like chapter 1, you need to get the book. If you don't like chapter 1, you don't need to get the book. But if you get the book, I'm going to also recommend that you get the journal. There's a guided reading journal to this book that has exercises laid out, and actually a couple exclusive exercises that are in the journal specifically. You need to do that for yourself. Invest in yourself, love on yourself. A lot of the conversations that I'm having lately with people, I'm like, you need to read the book. I poured a lot of myself and wisdom into this book. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so wise. I'm just saying I had to do a lot of work to pour the information in this book, so that way I didn't have to continue to have the same conversations over and over and over again, because now everybody has access to pick up the conversation, read it, and take the notes out, or eat the meat that's for them in that book. Number 2, the next thing that will be coming, it won't be on the first row, but if you head over to thegrinddefined.com, you can definitely connect with Carolyn Michelle on Friday, June 3rd, I almost said 6th, June 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Grind Defined will be releasing this week's episode. You're going to have to go and check it out if you want to know what the topic is. Also, the next time you will see us live on the first row will be Tuesday, June 7th. Yeah, June 7th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will be for the Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe live show. That show was wonderful last night. If you missed the live show last night, either go to the YouTube, go to Facebook, go somewhere where you can get to that show and watch last night's show. It was on traumatic suppression. And I got something before I finish tonight on that. The next time I'll be on for the Wednesday Word will obviously be next Wednesday. That will be June 8th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that topic is going to be the echo chamber. I cannot stress to you enough the importance of being on that show live. The reason being is because I have already had 5 echo chamber conversations with people because I don't believe in holding information back from people who need it right now. Like, oh, no, you got to wait till next week. This is not a Batman show. You're not going to catch this on next week's episode. Stay tuned. No, I'm going to give you the food that I have now if you need to eat. But the echo chamber is a topic that I've had for months that I've wanted to unpack and bring to the first row on the Wednesday Word. I think you're going to love it. Be there or be square. And then this is the bonus right here. So last night's topic on Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe Live was so powerful, and there was so much more that it could have been. But we have a time constraint on our show to try to stay within like an hour and 15 minutes. So what we are going to do is we're going to take a week to do a different topic. So next week we'll have a different topic. But the following week on the 14th of June, mark your calendars. 14th of June, 4 p.m., we're going to do our first Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe live panel discussion. And that will more than likely, for if Soto Jose is watching, that will likely be more than an hour. We're going to cap it off at no more than 2 hours, though, because we got life to do. But other than that, that's what I got for you guys today. If you do have a topic idea that you want to share with us, please send us an email at topics@firstrow.com. We'd love to unpack some of those topics for you. If it's something that we feel like we can pour into or coach to. If it's not, then sorry, we can't do it because I don't believe in misguiding people. But that's what I got for you guys today. I definitely enjoy you guys tuning in live. Appreciate you guys jumping in live on the comment section. But until the next time, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. Always love, again, engaging with you in the live chat. And I'm happy to engage with you in the comment section for the first 7 days that the comments are up. But after that, I move on to the next content because first row, we keep things popping. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the